Welcome back to the table. As you can tell by the thumbnail, we are back with another couple characters. Not to reveal because they've already been revealed most likely, but we have some details on Cyclops and Jean Grey. Now these characters are characters that we don't have components for right here in front of us, meaning we have not played with these characters. However, we have dug into their boards, to their leaflets, to their cards, to kind of bring you, some of the details behind how these characters work. So why don't you start with Jean Grey?
I will. Jean Grey is pretty cool. If you don't know the comics, you might not know this, but Jean Grey is like possessed by this entity, the Dark Phoenix, that like charges her up, gives her powers, makes her go a little wild.
Yeah.
So she's a little complex because her character is all about balancing these two sides. And there's actually a Dark Phoenix leaflet that's going to set on top of her player board. And you're going to switch back and forth from the basic Jean Grey player board to the Dark Phoenix leaflet. And her powers are going to change based on which side is active. Not only like the actual powers of her character, but also a lot of the abilities are going to do different things based on whether or not she's Dark Phoenix or Jean Grey.
And the cards.
Yeah, and a lot of her cards that you can play are going to do different things based on which form she is. For example, Force Barrier can only be played if you're Jean Grey, and that's going to give you a protective force field. And Pyrokinesis can only be played if you're Dark Phoenix, and that's going to give you a Flame Blast token. And that kind of showcases a little bit about how these two different sides work. You have a lot more on the protective side when you're Jean Grey, and a lot more on the damage side when you are Phoenix. In fact, some of her tokens can only be used when she's in that Dark Phoenix form as well. So you'll see here that a couple of these tokens can be used anytime, but some of them can only be gained. For example, you're going to get a lot more Force Field tokens when you're Jean Grey. You're going to get a lot more Phoenix Burn tokens when you're Dark Phoenix, but you can get them in a bunch of different ways. Force Field is going to protect you. If you're taking damage, you can half that damage by discarding any other token. And then you have Acuity, which is kind of her all-around token that's going to do a variety of different things. You can spend a number of these different tokens to get a re-roll, to get more CP, and even to inflict that Phoenix Burn onto an opponent. And then your Flame Blast is what's going to do a significant amount more damage. You can spend these tokens to enhance your attacks, but again, you can only even use these Flame Blast tokens if you're in the Dark Phoenix form. And then I talked about Phoenix Burn a little bit, but this is just an ongoing affliction that's going to sit on your opponent's board, and it's going to do damage. We've seen some afflictions like this before, where you have to roll to get rid of it, and so it's going to stay there, accumulating and doing damage every single round. And then, of course, as you see here, she does have that Dark Phoenix leaflet that's going to sit on top. Now, you'll see that her power, she has a mandatory power that causes you to flip. When you're Jean Grey, you can do some bonus draws. You get an extra card every income phase, and every time you roll 3 of a kind, you get to draw another extra card. But if you notice, when she becomes Dark Phoenix, you don't get income at all. You don't draw your card, you don't get your CP for that turn, but if you ever roll 3 of a kind, you do more damage. So she is kind of based around that idea of rolling 3 of a kind during her offensive phase. No matter which ability you trigger, if you triggered it with 3 of a kind, you're going to do a little bit better. And that's a really interesting mechanic for Jean Grey.
Yeah, she seems to be something that you need to control. She's going to go back and forth between Jean Grey and Dark Phoenix. Now, there are some cards that let you maybe somewhat control that.
Break the rules a little bit.
But not a ton. And there's even some cards that'll let her use some of the abilities that would normally be used on one side with the other.
Yeah, and I think that you're trying to find these opportunities to flip into the other sides. It's all about timing, because you could get a great roll, but maybe that roll doesn't do as much damage if you're not in Dark Phoenix, so you could play a card to go to Dark Phoenix form. So there is a lot, like you said, a lot to manage with Jean Grey, but she has a lot of power potential too.
Yeah, on a less complex front, but not terribly less complex, is Cyclops. He is a 4 on their complexity scale. And Cyclops is thematically about leadership, cooperation, lending a helping hand. So perhaps if you're playing with more than 2 players, Cyclops would be
a good choice if you're playing team game.
But the interesting thing about the mechanics are, and you can see on the player board, there's a lot of different abilities, like a lot of the other characters, that are going to give you some of those tokens. But you'll also see a lot of the abilities are enhanced if another leadership card had been played. And a lot of his cards, if not all of his character-specific cards, are leadership cards. They have that sort of little moniker on them. So he's all about wanting to get some of these cards played. I think you're going to end up playing more cards with Cyclops than you do a typical character.
Well, it definitely feels like it. And I don't think we've seen a character that relies so much on playing specific cards.
Yeah, and the cards, like I said, will not only enhance some of the abilities on the player board, but some cards will enhance other cards. Yeah. You'll play a leadership card and it says, if you played another leadership card this turn, do even more. So you're going to want to cascade these cards together. And again, a lot of these things are also fueled by those tokens or enhanced by those tokens that he has. The first one is Battle Plan. This is the one that it looks like he gets the most often. And as you accumulate these things, there's a stack limit of 4, but you can spend different quantities to do different things. You can spend 1 to examine the chosen player's hand. You can spend 3 to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then reveal one if it's a leadership card and put it into your hand. And then finally, you can also spend 3 tokens to inflict Focus Fire, which is another one of his tokens. This is the negative status effect where you can place this on a character and it increases the incoming damage by 1. And again, even if you're playing in a team, this could work out really, really well. But even if it's just Cyclops standing alone, he's going to get a little bit more done with his attacks. And then finally, Support. This is another one where you can spend different quantities to do different things. 1 token can get you 1 CP, or re-roll 1 of your dice at any time, or you can spend 3 to let the chosen player draw 1 card.
Yeah.
So like I said, Cyclops, while not as complex as Jean Grey, definitely brings some complexity. He's going to be using a lot of cards, more so than the typical character, and really going to have a lot of tokens and cards moving around, probably above average, I think.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of abilities that support your team, so he's a great choice for playing team-based games.
100%.
Jean Grey does a little bit too, like her force field could be used on other players. So that is Cyclops and Jean Grey. That brings our total revealed characters up to, I think, 6 now.
I think so.
Crazy, so.
There may be more. We'll see very soon. But that's it. If you have any questions at all about these 2 characters or any of the characters that have already been revealed, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there, answer whatever we possibly can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.